volunteer-run and artist-run cultural center. And we're really happy to present Robert Beshara, who has been working with the SHoP for the last 3 years, and he's presented a lot of his experimental films at the SHoP. So we've been privy to a lot of the great work that he's done in film. And he's been here for about 3 years, right, in Chicago, and is prepared now to move to Georgia. And is going to tell us a little bit about that with his talk and presentation on Shikaakwa. Shikaakwa. I should know that because I live there, but somehow. And thank you all for coming, and thank you, Robert Beshara.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? Great. Thank you so much for coming. I know it's an effort for you to be here, given the heat, the humidity, and the price of gas, but today is nice, the temperature, so it's good. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Robert Beshara, and I'm a transdisciplinary nartist from Cairo, Egypt. You're going to wonder about what that means, but you can ask me later again. So the theme for tonight is the Chicago experience. How does one experience Chicago? What does Chicago mean to us? That kind of thing. So I'm going to talk about my personal experience. I'll talk for maybe about 10 to 15 minutes. And then I'm going to show this video that I made, which is around 20 minutes long. And then again, we can have Q&As, and you can tell me about your experience of Chicago, what it means to you, that kind of thing. So Chicago has been my home for the last 3 years. And overall, it has been a wonderful experience. Minus the weather. I moved here in August of 2009 to start an MFA in independent filmmaking and digital imaging at Governors University, which is located in the University Hub. I finished my MFA last winter, and I'm currently polishing out my thesis film 4, so I can submit it to film festivals. And Justin here did the score. And Matt Sass, who's filming, actually acted in the film, and Tony here did was the DP. Did I forget anyone? Yeah. So it was entirely shot in Hyde Park last summer. So I'm moving to Carrollton, Georgia by mid-August for further graduate studies. So this is kind of my farewell, or my way of being thankful for all the great moments I've experienced here, as well as my way of being grateful for every warm person I've come across in the Windy City. Factors which made me a little less homesick. Chinatown has a special place in my heart. But let's not get all sentimental yet, okay? So the name of the exhibition here at SHoP is On Making Things Better, Strategies for Preservation. And I basically, I was sticking to that theme, and I want to quote something from their blurb on their website. In case you don't know, SHoP stands for Southside Hub of Production. So, start with the quote. This is a show about leaving. As many of you are aware, SHoP will close down and move on July 31st. In keeping with tracking our life from the house, this exhibition explores strategies for holding on to the experience, for wringing the meaning and significance out of the things that happen to us. We take pictures, we buy souvenirs, we write in journals, we perform rituals, we have parties. We tell stories and embellish them. Clearly without memory, we are helpless, but why not just let it happen and move on? Is enjoyment of an experience exclusive of the possibility of documenting it? Do we have to choose between immersing ourselves in experience and abstracting ourselves from it so as to understand, document, remember, define it? End of quote. And this is what I'm attempting to do with this event. I'm sharing my personal experience of Chicago, believe it or not, in the most concise manner, so you can have a context for the video you'll see later. I made that video using original images, videos, and music made during the last 3 years while living here in the second city. The video is dedicated to this great city and the people who make it so But before I start the video, I want to reflect on a few things. I chose GSU, a virtually unknown but accredited public university, amidst the prairies because the MFA program was small and affordable. Here's a little trivia from someone who loves the avant-garde. GSU started out in the 60s as an experimental educational institution, only to later on become more conventional. I chose GSU over the more famous Academy of Art University, where I was also accepted. I chose Chicago over San Francisco. Why did I do that? I was seeking an intimate program, and the MFA at GSU was exactly that. And there are some people here who went to school with me, Tony and Matt. It was small, but we had access to a fair amount of professional audio, video, and lighting equipment, and a media lab equipped with the latest Mac computers with Final Cut Pro and the Adobe Creative Suite installed in them, among other things. Wow, I'm doing great promotion for that. Guess what? I also worked at the Media Lab for 2 years. So I also got paid. How lucky was I? During my time here, I made more than 3 short films, 1 feature film, 4, and a multimedia performance which premiered at the SHoP, one of the incarnations before SHoP. In addition to writing and making music and other creative and educational endeavors. Also, the main faculty in the program, Professor Nearing and Professor Lee, were accessible and friendly, but most importantly, they weren't just film theorists, they're essentially indie filmmakers in their own right. And their latest feature film, Shikaakwa Heights, which some of you may have seen, and I think we had showing at SHoP as well, was the short version of that feature film. It was hailed by Roger Ebert as a beautiful film, and was had sold out screenings at the Gene Siskel Film Center, among other achievements. We're currently working on a new feature film called The Hot Town. So I'm proud to say that, who's from SAG here? SAG. I'm proud to say that an important professor at the School of the Arts Institute who came to review the MFA program at GSU, labeled the MFA program as Illinois' best kept secret. During my stay here, I made amazing friends and collaborated with talented artists, some of whom are already on their first steps of success. So, it's gonna get a little bit fun. So, Chicago before and after, how I imagined the city before coming here, as someone coming from Cairo, Egypt, and then how the experience was actually like. So, when we think of a place that we've never been to, and you can think of the place you want to go to that you haven't been to, we usually have an idealistic image of that place in our head, or some sort of fantasy, maybe even of a stereotypical nature. So when I thought of Chicago before moving here, I thought of the Prohibition era, especially being a fan of the movie The Untouchables. Strangely, in the summer of 2009, right before I went to Chicago, I saw Michael Mann's Public Enemies. Who saw that movie? No one? But I'm the only one. Two people. Great. Well, I'm going to tell you a bit about it in that case. It stars Johnny Depp, and it's about John Dillinger. What's interesting about the film is that the viewer sympathizes with Dillinger, even though he's a criminal, albeit a likable one, or an anti-hero. The film was shot digitally, which bothered a lot of people since it's a period film. But I thought the digital aesthetic gave the film a hyper-realistic feel, as if it were a documentary. The last thing I want to say about that film is that it shows us an important transition in the history of organized crime after Prohibition, when the mafia decided to go in a virtual direction with crime in a corporate style through the stock market and the like, leaving behind the physical approach of robbing banks using guns. Dillinger, however, wanted to remain old school and rob banks, so he had no support from the mafia, and of course he was sought after by the back then newly established FBI. This is definitely relevant today, given the context of the recent financial crisis and the Occupy Together movement. So finally, I was afraid from Chicago before moving here. I remember sitting at my computer in Cairo in my room and looking at a Google map of Chicago and kind of trying to imagine how it's going to be like. Of course, I was being naive. I was aware that modern-day Chicago had no resemblance to the Chicago of the 30s, but I was fantasizing about that Chicago. So now I know that there is a lot of crime, but it's not like I imagined. In my experience here, I've come across a handful of hustlers, and I've been tricked a few times. Who has been tricked by hustlers? Only one. Okay.
You can't play a player.
Wise audience. So the question is, the title of the event is Shikaakwa. What is Chicago? So according to Wikipedia, the name Chicago is derived from a French rendering of the Native American word Shikaakwa, translated as wild onion or wild garlic from the Miami, Illinois language. So stinky. Why Chicago? So why did I choose that name? Because to love something is to understand it, and to understand something is to find out as much as we can about it. Etymology can be helpful that way. By us learning about the origin of words, we can possibly learn a little bit more about ourselves too in the process. In other words, my experience of Chicago was my experience of myself. Chicago just happened to be then and there, and it was good. I want to share a little story, and I'm getting close to the video, about a music project which I've started here called Spidey and the Thunderstorm. And I want to tell you why I named it that way. After 2 weeks struggling to find an affordable apartment in a nice neighborhood with access to public transit, I found a nice little studio apartment in Hyde Park, not far from Lake Michigan. At 26 years of age, it was my first time living on my own, away from my family home in Cairo. In my old studio apartment, I had a friend called Spidey, who amazed me. During thunderstorms, he or she was constantly building and rebuilding webs that immediately got destroyed from the wind and the rain. I was impressed at Spidey's innate intelligence, building complex webs a la sacred geometry. I kept admiring Spidey through my window, thinking to myself as to how spiders are genetically predisposed to design such mind-blowing patterns. I also felt sad for Spidey. It's a tough life after all. This inspired the title for my Chicago music project, Spidey and the Thunderstorm. To me, that name symbolized part of what my Chicago experience was all about. So, having talked about that, let me introduce the video. And I'm going to ask some questions that I want you to think about, so we can talk about them later on, and we can have a discussion. Is that cool? Cool. What makes a certain place what it is? What makes Chicago, Chicago? How does Chicago feel like? So this is something for you to think about, and we can talk about that later. So to answer these questions, one would have to think of one's personal experience in the city, key elements, architecture, activities, food, people, public transportation, the weather, etc. All this has to do with how we experience the city in space and in time. These dimensions make the experience what it is. 98% of the images and videos that I used were shot using a point-and-shoot camera, which is a small camera, so not professional whatsoever. So this is mostly personal material. Some of it is amateurish, and some of it is simply silly. There are some professional photos thrown in there, but that's the exception and not the rule. The video has a lo-fi aesthetic, because most of the visual material was not meant to be shared in public, so this is a special premiere for everyone here tonight at SHoP, so you should feel lucky. You'll see some of my favorite people, my parents and my fiancée. You'll see some of my favorite places in Hyde Park or downtown. You'll hear some of the music which I composed either for or inspired by Chicago. You'll see some of my favorite activities, going to museums, Pitchfork Music Festival, walking. I'm sure there's a lot more to discuss, and we're gonna do all of that after the video. I just want to thank Laura Schaefer, Andrew N.A.R.T, William Anthony Ruggiero, Matt Sass, and Maria Constanza Garrido, as well as my parents. Thank you very much, and don't forget to take one of my business cards on your way out there on the table if you exit here. And we're going to start the video now, and then we'll have a discussion afterwards. look like fun. I'm in the middle of snow.
I'm going to sit
How do you feel?
in snow. My dress was very simple, very classic cut, but I fell in love with this one.
This is what they call the apex. It is the peak of the wheel. It is the most climactic point in a wheel.
And it's the best time to shoot.
And it's makes you feel a little bit tense, you know?
We're going down.
We are indeed. And we'll see you later, alligator. Goodbye. life-size sculpture of Marilyn Monroe. That was her height in real life. People don't know really that she was a giant. Most people see her in films, but that's just camera tricks. Anyhow, the point of this story is that I'm going to experience something that most people want to experience but haven't, which is to actually stand underneath Marilyn between her legs and look up to see her panties. This is every man's and woman's dream. Now here's the problem. She was wet and she dripped on me. share what Chicago means to you. What's your personal experience in the city?
I'll raise my hand first.
Okay.
But when I was really, well, a few things that I was thinking about when I was watching that. One is that my introduction to you was very lame because you've been just a really important person to us at SHoP and our family personally.
And you too.
And I just, wanted to say that you were, I mean, from the very beginning that when you showed me your first film, what I recognized in it was this kind of delicate kind of attention to the world around you that made me see things very differently. And when I was looking at all of these slides, I was thinking about how there was, in some ways, you were seeing Chicago, there were all these images around you, and yet the most beautiful part to me was when Maria, his girlfriend, and his family came into view, and I realized that it made me think about how meaningful places are to us because of our loved ones being there, and what would it have been like if these people weren't here, And I just started thinking about that, about the kind of poetry and poignancy of love and relationship within space, and so space becomes love and relationship versus just space, and I thought that was really poignantly expressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I absolutely agree. And I feel the same way about you and your family and SHoP and SHoP.
And you were the first person that introduced or actually talked to me 20 years later after seeing transcendental meditation in Portugal, I think it was. But you talked to me at length about transcendental meditation, which I thought was also really, that was just kind of a mind opening, and I can kind of see some more about that.
Well, definitely, loved ones make the place, and you get to see my parents and Maria over time, over 3 years in different seasons, and so it's different every experience like that. Anyone wants to share their experience of what they?
And I think this is kind of the other side of what Laura was saying. Not only the attention to detail, but the attention to the majesty of everything around you. I mean, you seem to just be in awe of Chicago, at least in this show. Just like every single thing is shown as like a glorious thing, whether it's a Katie did or the downtown area, or a statue or a plate of cookies, like anything. It all feels very majestic.
Yeah, it's definitely a positive experience. And I'm sure we can talk about the negative aspect as well, because it's relevant. But
well, that's interesting. I feel like we share this like moving to Hyde Park and then all these things going on downtown, but that's where you put your focus in Chicago. And so those, in a way, are the defining Chicago to you, even though you came in with this impression of gangsters and everything. That's not your exposure. I'm sure it's there, but not here necessarily, because your exposure to Chicago is more pointed, I guess.
Yeah, I had a lot of thoughts on it, and I think that, for one, I have like an off and on relationship with Chicago since I first came here when I was 18. I've been here I don't know how many times I moved away. It's like, people have relationships with people and they keep breaking up and keep ending up moving back in. That's like me in Chicago kind of. So it was like, I was thinking, this is really, maybe you can talk a little bit about just the work of actually putting that together as sort of a way to reconcile your relationship with the place. I also felt like, a couple of things I thought, one was I found myself getting really sad at leaving. Because I really wish you were staying or coming back and visit and stuff. And the other thought I had was just kind of it was inspiring to me the way you presented it, because it really felt like the way that images were coming at me, it felt kind of authentic to the way that our memories were. You know what I mean? Our memories don't necessarily have, we can project a whole narrative onto those memories, but it was kind of like these how our memories work, and that's really how it felt. There was a story there that I was experiencing sort of, but it was my own imagination there. It just felt really kind of like, I felt like I was entering into your memories, in a authentic way. So I appreciate that as just like on an artistic level. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I use a lot of also like, notice like time-lapse photography and stop motion. And also, memory can be fragmented, so
Right. Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
that's what I feel. Right.
Well, since I know you pretty well, and I definitely feel your work in this, because I know your work and I've been a part of your work for 3 years now, and it's quite exciting.
You're my J.
Exactly. But it definitely, and I know I've been a part of your life, so I've seen. I like to see things through other people's eyes, and this definitely opened my eyes to what you perceive Chicago as.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you mentioned the gangster thing.
Yeah.
When I was in Germany, stationed there, and I would bring up, people would be like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "Chicago," which isn't exactly true, but it's easier to say than Frankfurt, Illinois, and it's just outside of Chicago. And everybody would say 3 things. "Oh, gangsters, yeah, Al Capone, and Michael Jordan, and Al Bundy." So it's funny what people outside of the country, outside of the city, think of what Chicago is. When I was a kid, I used to think nothing existed between Frankfurt and Chicago, except for a blur from a train. So, and Chicago, I couldn't see myself anywhere else than here. Just the visualizations. It's like going to another land when you come to Chicago. It looks completely different from anywhere else I've ever been. And you've really captured that with what you've done.
According to anthropologists, it takes at least 1 year to really know a city. So it helps having lived here for 3 years to sort of think about what the city means to me. The things that make me happy, kind of images that at all when I'm looking at them.
So this is my first day in Chicago.
Oh, cool. Where from?
I'm originally from Istanbul, Turkey, but I'm currently living in Kansas, and I'm just meeting you. So I was asking Justin, so what can I see in Chicago? What must I see? And I'm glad you're thinking of showing me a very personal
There's a lot to see
depiction
now.
of what
Try
I
some
should see,
pizza.
What I should see. What I was wondering, one of the things I like doing the most, which I think speaks to me a lot about a new place that I see, is the people and just the locals and how they live in the city. So when I was watching this, I was wondering about your decision to focus on your parents and fiance's experience, who I'm assuming don't live here.
Yeah.
Right, so what I was seeing is what a tourist or an outsider might see, but what I really found myself missing was more of what the current people like who live here do, like how they experience the city. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, your decision to focus on the intimate, maybe, documentation of the city as opposed to
Well,
talking over.
I'm kind of sad now that I've excluded a lot of friends that are not here, but at the same time, I'm kind of abstract in my thinking, so I was thinking abstractly about architecture, certain images, and certain things that, and when I thought of people, I thought of myself as an expat and people visiting me and loved ones and making the experience different in a way. But there could be like another video just with friends. Nothing.
And I think kind of, just as a comment to that, I felt like, and I understand where you're coming from with feeling like there was a concentration on certain areas and people, but I feel like since I've been an expat for like exploration of being outside of your personal comfort area in life, and also being outside of your own culture, your own family, and being in this city, that's big, especially for somebody coming from another, from anywhere else. When you come to Chicago, it's kind of overwhelming. It's really, I just came back from Finland and I realized that I was there 2 weeks. I thought wow, this is so fast-paced, it's so crazy here. And anyway, I just feel like in a way, I felt that tension, that interesting kind of tension where, wow, this is really personal, it's really intimate here. And I kind of appreciated that exploration of the intimacy within the traveler that's going into this big city, and kind of putting themselves in this vulnerable position of living in a totally different culture for a long period of time, going to school, meeting people, and of course, as a friend of Robert, I understand that on a personal level, he makes people around him feel like they're very, very important. And so there's this kind of tension that is pretty intense. But I guess what I'm saying is that in the film, I felt like I could understand it from the perspective of the expat being someplace else and trying to anchor themselves within that context with this sense of stability and sense of love that bonded him both to the abstract environment and to where he came from, where the history lies.
I have to add that I come from a crazy big city. Cairo has like 20 million people, so Chicago.
That was kind of valid.
So it wasn't. I never felt like a tourist. I have to say, but I definitely an outsider, and then learn again in a way, in my own way. But that's why I said, any person at the end, wherever they are, is just a personal experience that they're having, whatever their background is. So this is sort of like it's like an inner journey, but it's visualized externally. It's like you said, it's like being in the mind, experiencing memories, or even experiencing the psyche. Something like that. But by the way, dog appears. Did you see it out?
Yeah. Well, it's almost subliminal.
Was it subliminal, or did you want to purposefully ignore it?
And Harry is in the background, like, you don't even notice it's out of focus and all the way to the back.
How do you think your film of Cairo would differ?
My film of Cairo? Which one?
The one that you would make.
That I made? That I would make.
Might make.
Yeah, probably would. Well, the thing is, the difference with this one is that the material that I used, I didn't intend to use it for anything. So the experiment was to use material that I already have and do something out of it, as opposed to have an idea from the beginning that I'm gonna do.
Which in a way doesn't reflect your experience here as much as your experience when you were visited here.
It's my
Because
experience.
the rest, all the images, most of them are surrounding the visits, right?
No, I mean, a lot of it is also just like random stuff like squirrels or buildings or grasshopper. But the idea is that, no, and also I like to take a lot of abstract photos you see of light and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, or the thunderstorm. And there was like a sand play therapy section as well. But anyhow, my point is that I wasn't trying from the beginning to be artistic with the material. The idea is to use personal stuff that wasn't, let's say, pretentious, because I wasn't thinking that I would make something artistic. I was just done spontaneously, and then use that and make something out of it, as opposed to planning from the beginning. I'm gonna make a movie about Chicago, and how will I film it, and how will I shoot it? So it's different. It's like,
I was thinking,
reverse engineering.
I'm thinking that it's a visitor's document because it shows the beauty, but it doesn't show, it's not conflicted at all, like a resident is,
It doesn't have negativity.
It doesn't have any of the seedier aspects.
If you can share some of the negative perspectives, that would be great.
Well, that's why I wanted you to contrast it with a film you might imagine making of Cairo, because I've lived here since '84, and my film would be showing a lot of sad things about Chicago.
That's what I was thinking when I said, like, maybe I need to make a film like this so it'll cheer me up.
No, I mean, part of it is just that the imagery itself, even the abstract stuff, I think is, my images are more imbued with a conflicted or sometimes sad, sometimes joyous, but a longer history. And that's the thing is that when you said that it takes a year, the anthropologists say, I think it takes, like, I was thinking of Pamuk, in Istanbul. Now he has a lifetime, love affair with the city, but it's, it's conflicted and it's labyrinthine, and he's dedicated his whole life to exploring it.
I think Robert's not quite conflicted. He's a
No,
positivist.
that's part of it too. It's his personality.
He's very positive about the things he experiences.
It's kind of like it's like a thank you, I mean, that's the whole idea. It's like, thank you, Chicago. So that's kind of the theme. If I can definitely do something darker. If I was saying, fuck you, Chicago.
Not you,
This one was thank you, Chicago. I think, thank you, Chicago. Thank you, the people, family people, or whatever who make me happy, or surroundings, or just focusing on the love and the aesthetics and the happiness. But probably if I plan the Cairo movie, because now I'm planning from scratch, it'll be different, because I'm gonna think of positive and negative. It's not gonna just be a thank you. It'll be just how to embody the experience of the city as much as it'll be hard. It'll be complex.
But this is really the way you feel about Chicago. It's joyous.
For the most part. I mean, let's say 80 to 90%. Just good.
And you felt Chicago embraced you.
Yeah, I get satisfied by basic stuff. Like if there's good public transportation, I'll be happy. If there's good food, I'll be happy. If there's good music, I'll be happy. I don't have. I'll be happy with simple things like that.
Did you feel like as an outsider you were embraced by people, or did you feel like it was hard to know people or be known here, or how do you feel about that? Because one thing I feel in Chicago is that sometimes present space is excluded, but there are not that many spaces to, meet people, to converse, to dialogue, to interact.
Well, sometimes
you're very good at just kind of like meeting people and talking to them. That's how we met. So, you just reach out to me.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
Well, definitely I had many times when I felt lonely and kind of depressed, and that's normal. But at the same time, a venue like SHoP or Off-Shop before that is a good excuse to meet people. And a lot of the people here went through somehow directly or indirectly, or at the university. It depends. There has to be, I guess, some reason or an interest. Like in our case, it was like I saw a flyer that you had, and I read it, and it was interesting, it was philosophical, so I went to the website, and if something stimulates me intellectually, I feel like, let's talk about this.
What I think amazed me, the images were beautiful. It was really, the integration of the music was really great. And it occurred, I have some problems with sometimes capturing the most intimate or real moments because you want to experience them and not be an observer.
Yeah.
So I feel like in a way, I mean, this definitely was, it's a film I think could be sort of a great film for the Chicago Tourism Board. Really, it would be.
Think so?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'd be a great piece.
But it's unconventional.
But still, I mean, especially the more obvious parts about the tourist, like, the Willis Tower and all that. But even beside that, you get the seasons, you get the different aspects, and it definitely has kind of a tourist feel. But as you said, you have different.
No, I don't see it that way. Like, I do these touristy stuff, and I enjoy them on a different level. Like, I try to approach it in a silly way, with humor. So, that's how.
I don't mean tourist in the sense of light. I don't mean necessarily. It's an observer. And looking at you're here for 3 years, and it's a captured moment that is where you're coming from the outside and looking at it. And on the other hand, I know you as being very involved in the community and very involved in like you said that you know more people in this 3 years than I've probably met in my lifetime living in this area. And it's amazing how many things that you're involved with. You're like, Ferris Bueller's Day every day, and I don't know how you do it. But all the people and I think that's what was sort of missing in the film, and the part of it that's not there. And perhaps again, as I said before, the most important part, in a sense, like that strange saying or the footprints thing, that's when I was carrying you. That were the most important points you don't see.
Well, like I said, my point was not to shoot anything specifically for the event, but to use already shot material that was not meant to be viewed in public. So it's like personal stuff that I decided, I'll use that personal stuff to make something out of it, montage, and then share it in public. That was the idea. I wasn't planning to, because if I thought about it that way, then I'm thinking I'm being an artist or being a filmmaker and I'm making something. But the idea was, of course, there's that when you're editing and you're making choices. Right. But I didn't shoot anything specifically for this event. I just used already shot material with the small camera that I have. That wasn't meant to be used for anything artistic or.
Well, you definitely have an artistic eye. You have a composer. That's what. You're looking at, you're observing. You're seeing your photo. You have some solid depths of field. You have some.
I definitely do that, but not all the time consciously.
Sure.
Well, I think there was a big kind of a break between, and there was also this kind of pace change, between when something was observed in a certain way, there was a kind of a speed up, and then something was observed in another way, and there was a pointed kind of slow down, and you felt like, oh, okay, this is a photograph, this is my work, this is my vision, this is my, and then there was another thing, I'm living this, this is something I'm living right now. And I thought that kind of shift in pace was really significant. And I also felt like, because and I don't mean to go back to Finland, but I just got back from Finland, and when I was there, I realized that as a person coming into, and again, this is what was beautiful, is you had this whole vision of Chicago before you came here, and then when you came here, you were free. You were more free than you, or me, or any of us, to just explore and get to know people and do so much that we somehow living here maybe just just don't ever get to these projects, these spaces, these people. And all of a sudden, I mean, I felt like in Finland, I within 2 weeks knew people that, and when I met other people, I said, hey, come on over to this thing that's going on tonight. And what? That thing is what? Where? What are you talking about? And it was because they were so caught up in their everyday life that they didn't really realize what was happening in their city. And I was on vacation. I had been thinking about this for years, what's Finland like?
Yeah.
And so I was free to move. And also, I had a mission, right? So I wanted to talk to people. And I didn't really care what they were going to think or say. I mean, my mission was to find out, to talk. And I feel like that, that comes across with this kind of, and I appreciate the idea that you would not use, that as an artist you could separate these things. This is kind of an intimate, it's not necessarily the tourist view, but it is the tourist view because you are coming from another culture into this culture and you're seeing it with these fresh eyes.
But a tourist only lives for 3 years.
But a tourist doesn't live for 3 years.
Yeah.
And sometimes even a tourist doesn't live for 2 weeks,
But it has a touristic element because when my parents and my girlfriend visit, we tend to do touristic stuff.
Yeah.
So it has that element, but then in addition to that, this element where I'm just admiring architecture. And this is something in me, even in Cairo, where I grew up and lived most of my life, I would still be curious about, going to events, art galleries, museums, and visiting. I would never take the city for granted. I don't like to do that. So it doesn't matter so I don't see touristic, I have to disagree with that. Even though it has touristic elements. Because
Well, that's an interesting point of being able to see your city, to see where you're at.
I live
and, maybe touristic is more people who are there, newly, and seeing something, right?
I live in the suburbs. I live very far removed from the city. And I still, even though I've been here for nearly 30 years, feel like a tourist every time I come to the city. Every time. Even if I come to just to visit Robert or just to go to a job even, I feel like I'm a tourist because there's so much to see. And I still see new things even though I've been to the city so many times. I'm sure it would change if I lived there. But every time I'm downtown, something new pops out. So you could spend a lifetime taking pictures of the city and still come out with new and differently and inspiring things.
But the problem is that when you live here, right? I was noticing the girl, when you were looking at the girl. To me, it was like, oh, thank God somebody can see things here. Because all I can see is that people don't move smoothly within the city. It's stressful. People are blocking each other all the time, It's hard. It's hard living here. So I feel like there's so many things that block me as a person who lives in Chicago from actually seeing where I'm at. I saw that lady, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't really fully enjoy her.
what lady are you talking
Or
about?
do you think, what?
Which lady?
I'm talking about the big lady down.
Marilyn Monroe?
Yeah, sorry.
That lady. That one.
I never knew that was
There she is.
Oh yeah, it came No, it's still there.
No.
Oh, it's gone now?
I was just complaining, this big picnic in Jackson Park. I was just like, bitching because it was like causing.
It caused a big deal.
Traffic to be congested around Jackson Park. Instead of people dancing and celebrating all day.
Almost being killed by a flying porta potty and stuff like that. The things that you wouldn't see.
There's a funny picture of a very rainy day in Chicago, and people were just under her dress and being sheltered that way.
I love that. She was wet, very wet on.
The stop motion penguin.
Yeah.
That got me.
Anyone wants to share anything about Chicago, their experience or whatever? records.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
This
Thank
is
you.
great.
It's good to see Chicago through your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you, like, the random things actually make me really happy, like, and this I do every day almost. When I see squirrels, I actually stop and play with them, try to joke around with them.
Yeah.
People will be like, what are you looking at? What's
Right,
going on?
right.
I'm like a weirdo because I do that. But,
Yeah, because,
but
yeah.
small things like that make me happy, you know, just,
Mhm.
Is this on your website or anything like that?
it is?
Yeah.
No, I plan to upload it. Probably on Vimeo or something. You want me to
And
share
I
it?
really appreciated the music. I really love the playful kind of introduction into Sati all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You know, that,
So
that was
an
really
electro
nice.
reggae version.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Robert.
Thank
I
you.
wanted to tell you, the kids wanted to say goodbye and they need to see before they leave.
That's for sure.
They want to have a big Robert hug.
You will be missed.
So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
I had fun doing this for SHoP and for you guys. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's meaningful to share this with you.
Thank you. It's really cool.